Hello all, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, I'm going to talk to you about how to become an MBA professor. So if you don't know me, I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I wanted to pay the favor for to help you out. So what do I mean by an MBA professor? So this is somebody that's going to teach a master's of business administration, one of the courses, whether it's one of the core courses like accounting. I would teach strategy. I'm actually going to be teaching the strategy course at my institution this fall. Whether it's that kind of thing or it's sort of an elective course, maybe it's something to do with innovation, for example, or maybe it's to do with technology within the accounting area. Whatever it is, you can teach an MBA course. It's not unusual. It's not sort of outside the realm of many people if you're thinking of becoming an MBA professor. So there's two ways to do that in terms of becoming an MBA professor. The first way to do it is to go through the normal tenure track process. This is where you would actually get a PhD. You'd probably spend 5 to 7 years working on a doctorate degree, and then after that you would go and if you were very fortunate and you really wanted to teach MBAs, you would be at an institution that has MBAs, and they would allow you to teach right away. However, most people will go to an institution, and most institutions kind of have a mix between undergraduates. So depending on where you're going, there's a mix across all different institutions, but many of them have undergraduates and a MBA or master's program. Some of them have a doctoral program. My institution has a doctoral program, and I teach in the undergrad, master's, or sort of the MBA and the PhD level. I'm sort of taught in all sorts of domains at this moment, crazy enough. So what you would do in that circumstance is that you would probably go and teach undergrads first, and then you would get into an MBA program. Unless you're going into an institution that only has a master's program, it's kind of like their lowest level, an MBA program, then you would teach them right away. And I'll get into the reasons why in a minute. But the other way that you can be an MBA professor, so a Master's of Business Administration professor, is that you become an adjunct or teaching faculty at an institution. And the way that you do that is you simply just apply and you tell them what your resume is, and you just apply to the respective university that you're thinking about, and you tell them that you want to teach an MBA course. A lot of times at many institutions, they are looking for somebody to teach extra courses where they have sort of little tidbits of courses that they need to fill, and there's nobody that to fill them with their own sort of core faculty that they have. That's really common for a lot of universities to have sort of core tenure track faculty, and then many different teaching faculty, a large sort of cohort of teaching faculty that teach the courses that they want to do. And it's just really common that they can do that. So you can apply to, that there's different processes and stuff at the different institutions. Often you just contact the chair of a department that you want to teach in, so accounting, or you just, contact the dean's office and let them know that you want to do that. You give them your credentials. Usually they're looking for, in that case, if you're going to teach and do teaching faculty, you have to be pretty credentialed in the sense that you have some experience, extensive experience. Probably an MBA is a requirement at most sort of institutions for that. And, maybe it's a specialty of some sort. So you're an accountant. They would love to have you as adjunct faculty teaching a course or two if you want to do that kind of thing. So a couple of things to consider with this if you want to become an MBA professor, Master of Business Administration professor. Teaching MBA courses can be challenging, but they're typically pretty rewarding in the sense that you are teaching people that. So depending on the institution, it really matters, and there's going to be wide variance with all institutions. We know that all universities, right, are different sort of skill sets where people are, and if you're getting people that are there that have, a few years business experience, and they can tell you stories about the things that they're doing. You can learn a lot from them, as well as they're going to learn a lot from you. And in this process, you don't want to, so you might not view yourself as kind of an instructor at that case, but more of an orchestrator, where you're sort of moving the conversation in the classroom. You still have to do a lot of teaching and instructing because people are new to a particular area, and so they haven't seen that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you are helping them along, sort of see the world in a different light, which is kind of really fun. Now, the other thing is that, so I mentioned earlier that a lot of schools are not going to allow you to teach MBAs right away. You're probably going to teach undergrad courses until you're sort of proven before you would teach MBAs. And the reason why they do that is because the MBAs for a lot of institutions, now it's changing, I've heard, at some institutions, but a lot of institutions, it is like the core money making, it's a profit center for the program that they're in, right? So in a business school, it's a profit center typically, where they're making a significant amount of money from that. So executive MBA would be another profit center where they would earn a lot of money from that. And so the ratings for those profit centers, a lot of institutions matter a lot, and so they're going to wait to expose the students to, they're not going to give you sort of an unproven professor teaching or tenure track professor into that role. The other thing is some MBAs can be challenging, and so they probably want you to just get exposure to sort of the teaching. So I taught undergrad first, and I actually taught doctoral courses really quickly. Now I'm going into the MBA area, and that's kind of, it's somewhat normal to do that in terms of the trajectory. I probably wouldn't have taught doctoral courses as quickly at different institutions, but you would whatever you fit in, wherever you sort of mash. But generally, the MBA, it is hard to get into in a lot of different schools because it is that profit center. So just have that in mind when you're doing this. Teaching, so a lot of MBA courses are taught through a sort of case study methodology where you get exposure to different businesses. So case study, they give you an idea of what the business is. You read what the business, you read a case on some particular business, and then you have to answer a question about the business, and you have a conversation about that. It is really beneficial for everybody that is participating in that, but it also takes a lot of time. That's something to consider when you're doing that. You're going to invest a lot of time, and if you're doing this simply for the money, it's not worth the money. I'm going to tell you that right up front. You're really not going to make that much money off of it, particularly if you're doing it like as an adjunct or teaching position. And you would typically do this if you want to sort of change careers, or you're sort of looking for something, you are inspired to teach, and then you would do that. You're probably going to make a lot more just staying in industry. Typically, you always do that, right? So teaching is not terribly rewarding, financially rewarding, but it's rewarding in sort of giving people insight and sort of being part of their life temporarily. And so you can sort of really have influence with them. The other thing is, don't expect high teaching ratings, particularly right off the bat. You're probably going to, your teaching ratings, what I've quickly realized is that they reflect a lot on who your personality is and your own characteristics. It's really well known research in terms of, everybody knows this kind of stuff, that there's these biases. For example, females, anybody that is, that's basically not, male, white, between the ages of 30 and probably not 30, between the ages of 40 and 60, you're probably going to have lower teaching ratings than other people that have, just different demographics, right? That's really well known, sort of biases that are in teaching ratings. So if you do get that, don't worry about it at all. That is just kind of what happens. And, I wish this would change, and I wish that we would have better measures that everybody would go by. But it's kind of the state of where we're at, and I don't see the norms changing around teaching ratings. So I wouldn't I just would not get all caught up in them if you do get that, right? So that's an important thing to think about, particularly if you're challenging. If you're challenging and you're sort of pushing people in to think, you're going to get low teaching ratings typically, and you really, or you're in a tough area, for example, you're going to get lower teaching ratings. So it's all that stuff is kind of really well known. So just don't pay attention as much as you would think to those teaching ratings. And if you have a great personality and you sort of have the right combination, you can get high teaching ratings, and that's amazing. But just if you're that person that has, you think you're going to be a good teacher, don't worry about it if your teaching ratings don't sort of match where you're thinking. And the last thing is, if you're expecting to go and teach MBAs to meet a lot of introductions, become a power broker, I guess, by teaching MBAs, where you're going to make a bunch of money by making connections and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to happen, right? We're all really self-centered. That's probably the wrong intentions to go into that. What you should be going into it is you're just wanting to give back. And if that's the case, you're going to enjoy the process a little bit more. You're not going to be sort of persuaded by, people being self-centered and sort of looking out for their own motives, which is exactly what everybody does. So just be careful if the reason is that you're going into it to, gain in some sort of way. You're not going to gain. I'm just going to tell you that right up front. Just, from the deep down in my heart, what you need to sort of work on, and the reason why you should do this is because of your own personal motivations, not because of something else that is driving that in terms of career success or something like that. It's not really a good way to, advance your career in any sort of way. It's more of, this is what your calling is, to sort of build on. So that's all I wanted to talk about in terms of becoming an MBA professor. There's two routes, right? The first way is becoming a tenure-track professor, where you would get a PhD and do the sort of normal, quote-unquote, normal route. And the other way is to become a teaching faculty. They're both difficult and rigorous. They're both challenging, and so don't think of one as easier than the other. Just think of them as different, and if you choose to do one process, no, you just have to stick with it for a while and persist with it. So difficult to do normal tenure track process. Trust me, it's really difficult. And it's difficult to become a teaching faculty at an institution as well. You're probably going to have to apply a number of times in different institutions before somebody finds you attractive. So with that, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.